Okay, we should be good.
All right, waiting for everybody to connect. We're live, we're recording, everything good?
Live and going.
All right. All right. I'm going to call the Moab City Pre-Council Workshop to order at 5:30 p.m. And the purpose of this workshop today is to meet with our colleagues with the Environmental Protection Agency, Casey Becker, it looks like Carl Daley, and Andrew Mutter from the EPA Region 8. And the purpose of this meeting is, if you recall, in February, we sent a letter to the EPA regarding the Hunter and Huntington power plants, and we encouraged them to reinstate pollution control requirements from 2016, which reduce haze causing pollutants by 76%. And just as a little background before we turn it over to the folks at the Environmental Protection Agency for council members, just so you know, in 2016, under the Obama administration, the EPA required the Hunter and Huntington Canyon power plants to reduce their emissions by 76%. And then under the Trump administration, those requirements were reduced. And now we have another new administration, and the EPA now has the ability to go back to those original requirements that would reduce the Huntington and Hunter power plants pollution haze to 76%. And so that's the purpose of having the EPA here. We want to hear from them. We want to hopefully hear that they're going to do as we encourage them. I think it might be good to introduce everybody. I'm Joette, and I'm the mayor, and I'm also the executive director for the Friends of Arches and Canyonlands Park. So this is a big deal for the National Park Service, for our economy, for the quality of life of our residents. We wish that you could be here in person with us so that we could show you our lovely environment and how much we want to protect the air quality here, to protect our landscapes and our view shed. So I'm going to just have each council member introduce themselves, and then we'll turn it over to KC. So Kalen, why don't you start?
I'm Kalen Jones. I've been on city council for 6 years, lived in Moab for 30, and I've seen the air quality change a little bit since I've been here. So looking forward to this conversation.
Luke?
My name is Luke Wojciechowski, and I've been on the city council for 3 months now, and have not been here for quite as long. So, but even in that time, I feel as though I've noticed a bit of change in air quality.
Ronnie?
Ronnie Drossery on the Moab City Council since 2016. I've been breathing Moab area air since 1999, and came up to the hearings in 2016, and I've definitely shot probably way too many photos of the parks over the years, and yeah, definitely have seen a variety. Thanks.
Jason?
Jason Taylor, Moab City Council. I've been on for 3 months, and I've been in Moab since 1994. So,
Tawny?
Hi. Sorry about that. I just walked in the door from work.
Okay.
I'm Connie Knutson Boyd. I've been on the council for 6 years. I've lived in Moab since 2004. My husband grew up here, and he worked at our lovely Huntington power plant many years ago.
Great. So that's our city council. We also have our staff, our acting city manager, Carly Castle, and our finance director, Ben Billingsley, and Mila Dunbar-Irwin, who's our sustainability director. And so with that, I'm just going to turn it over to you, Casey, and just hear what you guys are up to, and perhaps what you're going to do to help us reduce this pollution from these two coal-fired plants.
Thanks, everyone. So I'm Casey Becker. I'll give you just a little bit of background about me. I was appointed by the president to be the Region 8 administrator for EPA in November. And so I've just been on the job for a few months. before that, I was served in the Colorado State Legislature. I was the Speaker of the House, and I represent an area in Boulder, Colorado, and over to the Western Slope. And then before that, I was on City Council in Boulder. So I remember these evening meetings very well. In Boulder, we would like regularly go to like midnight and 1 a.m. So I hope that's not the case for you all. I think we just always had, we would get so into our discussions. Anyway, so with me today is Carl Daley. He's the acting director of the Air and Radiation Division at EPA Region 8. He is the expert in our
I think Casey's frozen.
Yeah, she may need to call back in. Well, as Casey was saying, I'm Carl Daley.
So,
Yeah.
Carl, if you have questions or specifics, I'm going for that. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
You cut out quite a bit, so we missed some of it.
I'm gonna turn. Yeah, because and I'm going to keep talking. I just think it helps to turn off the video. Anyway, and Andrew, maybe you want to turn off your video because it looks like you're frozen. Oh no, you're not. But just to help with bandwidth. Anyway, so that is so. Anyway, we'll turn to Carl for more specific questions, and I'll say a little bit, but I'm also happy to just do some listening. So you guys are familiar with regional Haze. Utah's, there have been 2 planning periods for regional Haze. They're 10-year periods. In the first round of these plans, the regional Haze state implementation plans. So the first planning period covered years 2008 to 18. And now we're in the second planning period for regional Haze. That ends in 2028. And by the way, I'm just going to mention, before I was on City Council in Boulder, I actually used to work for the National Park Service as an attorney. And one of my major cases was in Canyonlands, but I have a total love for our national parks and specifically for the Utah parks. I just worked on a lot of litigation involving off-road vehicles in Canyonlands. But anyway, so back to regional Haze. So the first planning period for regional Haze has been litigated for years and is still yet to be resolved. And so I won't comment on current litigation, but you all sent comments to EPA on the 2016 state plan for regional Haze. And just, I think participating is great, and you guys should keep doing that. And it's a really important part of the process. So Region 8 is currently working with Utah on its final version of the second planning period for the regional Haze state implementation plan. And so we expect Utah to submit the plan to EPA in May. And we, acknowledge that states were supposed to do that by July 30th, 2021. Utah is late. Most states are late. But we do expect them to submit their second round plan in May. So Carl on our staff has been working with Utah Division of Air Quality, and we've gotten the state's initial draft regional Haze plan. It was sent to all the federal land managers, so the Park Service, U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And so, as you know, the Park Service and the federal land managers oversee the Class 1 areas that are to be protected under our regional Haze laws. So anyway, the federal land managers did provide feedback to us and to Utah on the draft. So we anticipate sending EPA's comment letter to the state very soon, so before Haze plan. And And then Utah is going to hold some state public comment outreach efforts, do public comment period and do outreach. So, we'll see how they incorporate the comments from the federal land managers. And you in Utah will also have the opportunity to provide comments to the state at that time. So all that is, to say is that it's all in the works. I don't think we're going to go into too specifically what our comments back to the state are going to be. I'm also going to just mention that you may have seen, separate from regional haze. I'm going to turn my camera back on, by the way, to see if that, it seems, am I frozen, or are you guys hearing all this? So far, so good. Okay. So separate from regional haze, about 10 days ago, the EPA proposed a good neighbor plan that decreases pollution from power plants and industrial sources that significantly contribute to unhealthy levels of ground level ozone or smog to downwind states. So these good neighbor plans have existed in the eastern US for a long time, but this is the first time really west of the Mississippi, the EPA's ever proposed a good neighbor plan. And so there are upwind states and downwind states. Utah and Wyoming are in this good neighbor plan, upwind states that are going to have to decrease pollution from power plants and industrial sources as a way to limit ozone emissions of nitrogen oxides. And so that was just proposed, like I said, 10 days ago. And we'll have, we have not gotten comments. We don't know yet how Utah and Wyoming are going to react, but it will have an impact on the way they regulate power plants and industrial sources. So let me see if there's anything else I want to mention. So Hunter and Huntington power plants are impacted, I'd say, by this good neighbor plan. And so the good neighbor plan is separate and apart from the state's regional haze obligations. But again, it's a separate action that may impact the way Hunter and Huntington are regulated. So there, with the good neighbor plan, there's it's a federal implementation plan, so separate from the state implementation plan. But there's a 60-day comment period that starts when the proposed rule is published in the Federal Register. I don't think that's happened just yet. I think it's about to happen. So again, an opportunity for the public to participate and comment. And of course, City of Moab, I think should take a little should take a look at that and provide comments as the Federal Register specifies to do that. So all that is to say is there's the regional haze second round that we're going to be providing comments on to the state soon, and then separately from that, there's the good neighbor plan that the comment period will open up shortly, and again will have an impact on industrial sources and power plants in Utah. So that's kind of an overview of where we are on things. I guess what I would I could just stop here and we can take questions, hear comments. I think, like I said, Carl, or you wave so we can, yeah, you're not frozen. So that might be helpful if he kind of digs into any specifics that you guys have. And that's all where I'll leave it for now.
Great, thanks, Casey. Council members, questions? Kaylin.
Thanks for that summary. So is the good neighbor plan an implementation of the Casper Rule?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So so I'm only superficially familiar with it, but that's a cap and trade sort of framework?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Carl, do you want to go into more details on that? But yeah, it limits emissions. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, right. Well, first of all, good afternoon, council members and mayor. Yeah, it starts with a EPA setting an emission budget and allowances, and then over course as the years go by, starting in 2023 out to 2026, the budgets get lower, and the state have to develop plans, and sources would have to develop plans to meet those budgets. But there is an allowance program, so there can be trading, but the allowance granted is predicated on reasonable controls, and in this case, controls beyond what Hunter and Huntington currently have installed. And if you're familiar with the term selective catalytic reduction, SCR, I believe that's the control that EPA assumes would be in place to set that emission budget by 2026. Again, a proposed rule that we will be taking comment on.
So the Good Neighbor plan, if implemented, would be additional to measures.
Regional Haze rule
Regional Haze.
or plan.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
implementation to make measurable progress on that. Okay.
Well, again, like Regional Administrator Becker said, it comes out of a completely different part of the Clean Air Act. Regional Haze is to get to the goal of natural visibility conditions by a certain date. 2064 is the plan. The Good Neighbor provisions are part of interstate transport regulations and statute in the Clean Air Act that say that upwind states have an obligation to control their emissions so they're not impacting downwind state receptors. In this case, emissions of NOx, nitrogen oxides from Utah, impacting modeled receptors in the Denver ozone non-attainment area. So that is more of a health-based part of the Clean Air Act versus the aesthetic visibility provisions in Regional Haze. But they're obviously related because they're regulating the same sources.
Right. Thank you.
So Ronnie, I know you have some questions. I want to clarify. So you guys, so the idea is to use the Regional Haze rule in addition to the Casper rule, because the Regional Haze rule is been around for a while. It's tried and true. We know that it's effective. So we would be using, you guys are considering using the Regional Haze rule now, and in addition to the Casper rule. Is that correct?
So again, Carl is the expert, but both Regional Haze, which is an existing program, and is focused on visibility in Class 1 areas like national, Class 1 national parks.
Mm-hmm.
That is moving forward. Utah's developing a state plan to address round 2 of Regional Haze. Separate from that, their EPA is taking an action. It's called the Casper Rule or Interstate Transport or Good Neighbor, which gets at some states impacting upwind states, impacting downwind states, and their ability to stay in attainment for national ambient air quality standards. So in this situation, those upwind states like Utah will have to take action because they're affecting downwind states. And so that is just a separate action, separate from Regional Haze, that could impact. We'll see what happens because there's a 60-day comment period. Like I said, it's the first time that this interstate transport rule has applied in the West, in the Mountain West. So after the comment period, we'll see what happens, but it could have an impact on how Hunter and Huntington are operated.
So couldn't we just go with the Regional Haze rule and now? Because it seems to me like the Casper rule is kind of a work in progress. And that is, that we don't, there could be litigation. I mean, who knows what's going to happen. But the regional Haze rule is now, it's available to be used now. I mean, it seems like we may want to just move forward with that as opposed to adding another layer to something that could be taken care of now.
Do you want to address that, Carl?
Sure. So under the Clean Air Act, both have to be addressed. The Clean Air Act requires EPA to take action on both. But I think what we're driving at is that some of the outcomes under either regional Haze or the interstate transport provisions would be that the same controls on some of these sources like power plants would be acceptable for either regional Haze or interstate transport. And Mayor, to your point about regional Haze being done, it really isn't. It's an iterative process, as Regional Administrator Becker mentioned, that we really haven't even finished round one yet because we're still in litigation, and the state haven't submitted their round two plan yet. We would have to approve that or disapprove it, just like what we did with round one. If we approve it, we're subject to litigation for stakeholders that didn't like us approving it. And if we disapprove it and put a federal plan in place, like we did back in 2016, we're very likely going to be subject to litigation on that second round regional Haze plan as well. So I don't think we escape litigation in any instance here, but you're right. Certainly the interstate transport rule is just a proposal. When it goes final, it's certainly subject to litigation. But again, we're still dealing with litigation on the round one regional Haze plan from Utah that should have been finished up 10 years ago, and that's still being litigated. And you mentioned the history there, where we after some long back and forth with Utah, had a final rule come out in 2016, which was a federal plan. We had disapproved the state's plan, but we were litigated, and EPA reconsidered that revised state plan. And in 2020, EPA approved that final plan, and now we're being litigated on our revision to approve the state plan. So it's got quite the history there in regional Haze. But on the good neighbor side, this is a new program for the Western states, but it does get at the same kinds of controls on nitrogen oxide emissions from these type of facilities in the same way that regional Haze does. So it's going to benefit both programs, right? If you reduce NOx, you're reducing visibility pollution, but you're also reducing a precursor to ozone formation downwind in another state.
Great. Ronnie.
I just wanted to thank you for coming to speak to us. I know that those of us who followed, round one in 2016, we were excited about the BART, the best available, oh crap, now I'm going to forget the R. Is it retrofit technology?
Yeah, retrofit technology, right.
No, that's what the SCR falls under, right?
Yeah.
Well, so at the time, anyway, my understanding was, and in case this helps colleagues or people listening, that Hunter and Huntington are among the 20 most polluting plants in the U.S. I think, I'm gonna mix them up here because I'm a little dyslexic, but one was like the second or third, and the other one is like number 18. And then had we been able to, have the SCR put in place at the time, we would have had that significant percent reduction in emissions, the 74% or what have you. And I think I just want you to know that I feel like our council and other people can speak up for themselves, but are very, very supportive of EPA doing whatever and however multiple things in your capacity to reduce those emissions. And we have concerns for multiple reasons. I mean, I have people with asthma in my family. Asthma is a major problem in the state of Utah, other breathing issues as well, but certainly, we feel a sense of stewardship for this area and the parks. And I think we feel a responsibility for the regional Haze visibility issue as well. And we have businesses of all sorts that depend on the parks and park visitation. So certainly I just want you to feel, to know that, I feel like coming in, some of us had a sense that regional Haze was a known, tried and true approach. And then that was probably the best approach to take, although we were interested in learning more about Casper, that sounded like it was maybe more likely to be litigated. So thanks for teaching me a little bit more about that. From what you're telling me, I mean, I would certainly feel supportive of both, because it does seem like the health impacts are equally important to address as the visibility ones. I don't know if there's, some of our other concerns, are climate based, and we feel like those align with the Biden administration. And one of our concerns is that if we don't have the EPA pushing for change, the state of Utah probably will not be changing at all, or at a rate that is conducive to human and other biological health. So in some ways, we're asking for your help to do whatever you can as soon as possible, because we don't want this to go on decade after decade. And you have a power that we don't have to make sure that things like SCR are put in place. And I just want you to know we have your back. That was it. Thanks.
Thanks, Ronnie. Very well put. I really appreciate that. And, we're kind of getting short on time here. We've got a couple more minutes, so why don't you guys go ahead and let us know what you plan to do.
I like I said, that there's an opportunity to comment once the regional Haze or the Casper Rule or the Good Neighbor Rule is published in the Federal Register. So keep an eye out on that. We have gotten your comments on regional Haze. We're going to be providing comments to the state. And so we're in the process in regional Haze. Carl, anything you want to add to that?
I would just add that when we send our comment letter to the state of Utah, I think that would give stakeholders a sense of where the agency's coming from in terms of our thoughts on Utah's plan. And as I think Casey Becker mentioned, we plan to send those comments. Now, those are preliminary comments and not our final agency action. That won't happen until the state formally submits the plan to us, and then we take action on it and propose a decision one way or the other. But our comment letter back to the state should give you a sense of where the agency's thinking is at the moment, and what we think of the state's draft plan. And I think that same could be said with the comments that the federal land managers have provided to the state.
So when will that come out? When will we get a chance to see that?
It should be soon, in a couple of weeks. Again, remember these are just our preliminary comments, and then the state will take whatever revisions they make to address EPA's comments or the federal land managers. The state of Utah will then take that out as a official proposed plan for everyone to comment on. And so that's when you would have an opportunity to submit comments to the state. Then the state will address those comments, submit the plan to us, and then we will make a decision on whether we approve it or not. And obviously, as part of that process, we would be soliciting comment again, just like we did back in 2016.
Very good. So Carly, I'll ask you to kind of keep track of this so that we can make sure our comments are put into place, and so that our voice is heard up at the state and also with the EPA. So,
and I'll just say thanks for having us. Appreciate the engagement and the opportunity to talk with you all, and hopefully we've had travel restrictions in place. Those have partially been lifted. So I'm going to be doing more travel, hope to make it down to Southern Utah, and I will hopefully, reach out at that time.
That'd be great, Casey. Love to have you down here. I understand you're going to be in Salt Lake City soon, so we're just a 4-hour drive south. We'd love to have you guys here. Carly, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Nope, I was just telling you we can definitely track it and make sure our comments get in.
Very good.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you so much. Yep.
Nice to meet you all.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, council.